Hi, this is Qasid at instantmaths.co.uk. In this video I'm going to show you the different types of graphs you need to be able to recognize for your GCSE Maths higher tier exam. The first type is a straight line graph. The simplest straight line graph is this, y equals x. A straight line graph can also be y equals x plus or minus any number. It can also be x multiplied by anything. You also need to be able to recognize y equals negative x. And that's the same as y equals positive x, except it's reflected about the y-axis. The second type of graph you need to recognize is y equals x squared. That's called a quadratic graph because of the x squared term. It's got this curved shape, which is called a parabola, and it's upwards facing like a smile when it's positive x squared, and it's flipped or reflected about the x-axis when it's negative. So it's like an upside down smile when it's negative x squared. X squared graphs can also have x terms and number terms. The key is, as long as it's got an x squared in it, then it's going to have this curved parabola shape. The next type of graph you need to recognize is y equals x cubed. Y equals x cubed has this sideways S-type curve. When x is positive, y is positive, and when x is negative, y is negative. Because a positive number cubed is always positive, and a negative number cubed is always negative. It can also have x squared terms, and x terms, and number terms. As long as it has an x cubed term in it, it's always going to have this S-type shape. Notice the shape of the curve is determined by its highest power of x. So in this case, the highest power of x is x cubed. That gives the sideways S curve, even though it's got x squared terms and x squared and x terms in it. Similarly, x squared will give you this curved shape called a parabola, even if it's got x terms in it, because its highest power of x is x squared. And y equals x will always be a straight line, so long as it's only got x terms and number terms. It doesn't have any x squared terms or x cubed terms in it. The last type of graph you need to recognize is y equals 1 over x. This type of graph has got two curves, neither of which touch either of the axes, neither the y-axis or the x-axis. They tend towards it, but never quite get there. One way of thinking about why this is if you consider x becoming larger and larger, that means going in this graph to the right, y becomes 1 over a larger and larger number. So it becomes a smaller and smaller fraction. But as x becomes larger and larger, y never quite becomes 0. It just becomes smaller and smaller. Similarly, if you consider when x becomes smaller and smaller, y becomes larger and larger, but x can never become 0 because 1 over 0 is infinity, so it can never quite touch the y-axis. Anyway, the shape of the y equals 1 over x graph is like this, and the shape of y equals minus 1 over x is the same, but reflected about the y-axis. So these are the four types of graphs you need to recognize: y equals 1 over x, y equals x cubed, y equals x squared, and y equals x. So these are the four types of graphs you need to recognize: y equals x, positive and negative; y equals x squared, positive and negative; y equals x cubed, positive and negative; y equals 1 over x, positive and negative.